All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Wisconsin Farm Bureau Lunch and Learn. I'm Wendy Candle, the Director of Training and Leadership Development here at Farm Bureau, and I'm happy to have all of you with us today to talk more about policy development and the policy development process in Farm Bureau. Just a couple of notes before we get started. If you have a question throughout any of today's Lunch and Learn, please remember to unmute yourself and ask that question, or there should be a chat feature at the bottom of your page as well. And so if you do have a question, feel free to just type in your question and I'll make sure that Steve gets that answered before we wrap up today's session. But before I toss it over to Steve Bowe, who is our Director of Local Affairs, and who's going to talk about policy development and where to find some of those important resources, I wanted to let you know that it is county annual meeting season, and that's where all of the policy development really starts, is at your County Farm Bureau annual meeting. So if you're wondering, gosh, how do I get to or know when my County Farm Bureau annual meeting is? It's actually pretty easy. We will... I'm going to share my screen here. So here we go. We actually share the county annual dates on our calendar. So if you go to our homepage, wfbf.com, and you can find the events tab, you scroll down to the calendar, and you will be able to find a list of our county annual meetings on the calendar, but there's also a full list of counties, dates, times, and locations, so you can click on that. So if you are from Adams County, you can see your county annual meeting will be on October 20th, registration and social at 6, and the meeting or the meal starts at 6:45. So that is where you can continue to check back to see when your county annual meeting will be taking place and if there might be any changes. If you have any questions about your county annual meeting, maybe you've never been to it before and you're just not exactly sure how that all works, you can contact your County Farm Bureau president and they would be able to assist you with answering any questions you might have. So how do you know who your County Farm Bureau president is? You can go to the About tab on our homepage, find county farm bureaus, and then you can go ahead, find your county that you are a member of. I'm going to, because we talked about Adams, I'll click on Adams and you can find your County Farm Bureau president's name plus their phone number, so you can contact them to get all of the information that you need about the county annual meeting. So with that, I am going to toss it over to Steve Bowe. Like I said, Steve is our Director of Local Affairs. Before that, he served as a district coordinator, so he's worked really closely with the policy development process, especially with our county farm bureaus. So he's going to talk about that and show you where some of those resources are located. So I'm going to, Steve, over to you.
All right, thank you, Wendy. And what a great segue into policy development, talking about county farm bureaus, because that's really where this all begins. Some counties, some districts have some policy meetings that happen before their county annual meeting, but really when it comes to the nuts and bolts about policy, the end game starts with the county annual meeting, and that's where resolutions and policy gets passed. And so what we're really going to be talking about today is, number one, where to find some of the resources in helping to craft some of that language, and also what are some of the topics that we're really looking for some policy language on this year. And so to begin with, I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you how to find the County Farm Bureau information, policy development information. So this is obviously our homepage. Actually, just to start from the beginning, we'll go from here. This is our WFBF homepage. And one of the tabs on top is going to be policy. And if you click the policy development page, this is where our policy book and also our items of interest for this year. So if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see tabs or links for water quality, rollover protection structures, driver's license, permits to undocumented individuals, and the minimum markup on fuel. And any one of these, you can click the link and then it'll open to the information that we've provided for board of directors. It gives a little bit of background about the information. This one is obviously about the minimum markup on fuel. And then it talks about maybe some questions that we have about it. At the very last are probing questions. Should we continue with the support of repealing a minimum markup of only gasoline and diesel? Should we amend our policy to support repealing minimum markup sales below cost on certain products, some products? And so it tries to probe some discussion regarding that specific topic. Like I said, we have links for all 4 of those. But towards the top of this webpage is our policy book. And this is kind of the Bible of Farm Bureau policy, if you want to put it that way. You can click the picture of the policy book, and it'll open up in another page what our policy book is. These are the first 2 pages, but more importantly, here is the table of contents. And when you're thinking of policy, you should also think about where that policy should go within the book. And so if you are interested in something related to dairy, or if you are interested into something related to land use, maybe eminent domain, there are various subject matters that have specific places within the book. And so you're going to want to double check to, number one, see if it's actually already in there. Many of the discussions that people have about policy, they don't necessarily realize that we already actually have on the book. And so one of the things that you're going to want to double check is it current policy that we have already, or is it not? Because obviously if it's not policy, that would be something you would want to bring forward and have a discussion at your annual meeting. But if it's already policy, it's policy. And so for instance, Wendy and I were just talking, everything's broken down by page and also by line. And if you're also skimming through the policy book and say that there's something that you don't necessarily agree with or like, if you wanted to change that, you could also change the wording by saying, for instance, page 1, line 57, strike it. That's very specific. I actually believe that we as an organization do favor of allowing the choice of different varieties of white and flavored milk. But if by chance you happen to be opposed to that, that would be how you would do it. Page 1, line 57, cross it out.
That's just an example. Let's remember.
That's just an example. Just an example, folks. I don't want any hate mail about how I am not in favor of different varieties of flavored milk. I am actually a huge proponent and supporter. So once you get to the point of where you have identified in the book the policy should go, that's actually when you're going to start crafting the verbiage. Now, I'm not here necessarily to tell you how and what to say, but I am going to encourage you on 2 words. Either we support or we oppose. And the reason why we're encouraging members to use those 2 words is to make it very clear where Farm Bureau stands so that there is no wishy-washiness. For example, whereas blah, 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 blah. Well, that doesn't really say a whole lot. What we're really looking for is clear, cut, and dry your intention of what that resolution and policy is intended for. We oppose or we support. So after the county annual meetings are done, and let's say you have a resolution that milk should be offered, a milk vending machine should be offered at all of the county rest areas on the interstate. Okay, let's just go with that as a resolution. That passes at the county annual meeting and then would flow up to the state, where the state policy development committee, which there are representatives from all 9 districts plus other committees, and the vice president, which would be Kevin Krenz, helps to lead that discussion. The committee goes through all of these resolutions that flow in from across the state, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resolutions, and some are picked and some are not. And what I really want to try to impress upon you is that just because maybe your resolution didn't get picked doesn't mean that it's not valued. And it may be that the committee had some questions about it, or maybe misinterpreted what you were trying to get across. And so there's an avenue for you. So after the committee meets in November and they pick what resolutions that they're going to propose to delegates, that information is obviously sent to the delegates. But here's a key thing to remember in regards to the policy development process. At the state annual meeting, there is a 2-hour time frame from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. This is key. 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, in which delegates can come in and offer an amendment to the floor with a resolution that passed the county annual meeting. If the resolution had passed the county annual meeting, it will automatically go up to the floor for discussion. If it did not pass the county annual meeting, then that has to be approved by the Policy Development Committee. And historically, they typically have not taken on those. They've just asked the author of it to wait an additional year if possible. But from time to time, they have taken it up. But so 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday, like I said, anybody could bring forth a resolution that wasn't picked up by the PD committee. So let's say, for the example of the resolution of, we support the state of Wisconsin having milk vending machines at all rest areas along I-94. Let's say the PD committee didn't necessarily think that it was that pressing of an issue to take up. But I'm really passionate about it, and I believe that the delegates deserve to hear this amendment, this proposal, and so I'm going to go to the Empress Room. At least that's where it has been in the past. You're going to want to double-check your schedule to verify that that is the case, but in the past it's been the Empress Room. And I'm going to sit down with the GR team, and I'm going to say, I had a resolution at, we'll stick with Adams County, that we support milk vending machines being at all the rest areas for I-94. We'll verify that that resolution did pass Adams County annual meeting, make sure that the verbiage is in the same correct language that it was, and then it'll be added to the number of proposals that are discussed on Monday morning at the resolution or delegate session. And so it sounds complicated, but in all reality, it really isn't. The biggest things that we want to make sure that you guys are aware of is that, make sure that it's we support, we oppose. So any questions out there from anybody?
So Steve, just to recap for everybody, in order for us, for Farm Bureau members to talk about, submit policy, first, they should take a look at the policy book and see, number one, do we already have policy on that? And if that's a yes, then do they want to make any changes to what that current policy is? And if it's a no, what should the policy sound like, or what verbiage should be used to create policy on that, using the we support or we oppose? Remembering that the we part is actually we as Farm Bureau members, as the grassroots organization. So now that they've created that verbiage and they want to take that to their county annual meeting, a part of the county annual meeting is talking about that verbiage that they would like to propose and having that discussion. and seeing if members at the county level approve or oppose that. So it does have to pass at the county annual meeting. And then it will go to the State Policy Development Committee, and they pretty much take it from there and decide whether or not that will go to the delegate floor on Monday morning at our State Policy Development meeting. Am I missing anything in there?
Just a reminder about just because the committee doesn't take it up doesn't mean that it's not a valuable resolution or that it doesn't have merit. It really could be that the committee wasn't exactly sure about the resolution. It could be that they had more questions. So just don't take the committee not forwarding on the resolution to the delegate floor that there was necessarily something wrong with it. It could be that they had questions or they weren't 100% sure about it. And so that's where you have that opportunity to come back on Sunday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. To make sure that the delegates have an opportunity to hear that resolution, so long as the resolution passed the county annual meeting.
All right.
This is Wes Raditz. Just wanted to maybe, do you want to mention how Farm Bureau members can bring not only state sort of things, but even local issues to their annual meeting too? They don't, if they're concerned about a local road issue or something that really doesn't pertain statewide, maybe you want to hit that a little bit, and you want to mention a little more, or maybe you're going to mention a little more about federally related issues and how the process goes on further?
Great question, Wes. And really, there are two differences. We add, there is an opportunity for local resolutions, and obviously we have American Farm Bureau. And so part of, it's not necessarily so much in this book, but there is a AFBF book that's even thicker and bigger. And you can propose, obviously, federal resolutions. A lot of things from milk marketing orders to taxes to anything under the sun that deals with federal government. Labeling is a big one that comes with the federal resolutions. And then, as Wes alluded to, also locally. I know that many counties have had discussions locally about wheel taxes or a sales tax, things that are happening locally. And a county farm bureau does have the autonomy to make decisions on those for themselves. And so it's not the worst thing in the world, and I would argue very much encouraged for Farm Bureau members to have those discussions on local issues that are affecting their county. Thank you, Wes, for that.
All right. Are there any other questions about the policy process, crafting some of that verbiage for policy along those lines? I did just want to reiterate that we do have those 4 topics, and those are just, like Steve said, there to help spark some discussion. Those are some of the big issues that are present today. And so we're not saying that those are the only issues, but those give you some background information. Those are just things to get people talking. And so those are definitely worth reading if you want to learn more about those issues and ask those questions to yourself if you had to make decisions about that or think about how Wisconsin Farm Bureau might be able to have some policy related to that or change some policy. Those are just issue backgrounders. They give you some of that background information. So just wanted to make everybody clear on that.
Could I just interject something here, Wes Raditz? Some people I've found, as a district coordinator, it seems people have told me they have some thoughts, but they just really can't put them into a resolution as such. But I just want to encourage, and I think you would also back me up to encourage people, bring just your ideas to that county annual meeting. If you just, maybe even if you can't quite put it into a specific, we support this or whatever, bring that idea up. Somebody else might be feeling the same way, and you can put something together. People shouldn't feel intimidated.
Crafting resolutions often is a team, if you want to call it atmosphere, or it's a team effort. And Wes is spot on in regards to, you don't necessarily have the correct verbiage, but that's where all of your counterpart members can help in the crafting of that and making it better. And so just throw out the idea and see where it lands as far as the specific language. Again, hoping that you're very specific in regards to we support or we oppose.
Thanks, Wes. Any other questions or comments?
We'll host this next time. Wes had some really good one.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we are going to wrap this up, but I really do encourage you to participate in your county annual meetings, because that's the most important part. That's where your voice and opinions can get heard, and where you can actually start developing some of that policy or changing some of the policy that we currently have. So don't forget to check out the calendar and see when your county annual meeting is. And if there aren't any questions, we will also have this recording online later today. So have a great afternoon, and we will see everybody in September already. September, our topic in September will be farm safety. So have a great day.